Right before go time, Marissa Caldwell leaned toward me with a smirk that never reached her eyes and said, very quietly, "If you do not show up, it would actually be better for this project." For a moment, the words did not hit me. They floated in the air between us like something waiting to decide whether it was a joke or a command. But Marissa's expression stayed steady. No wink, no laugh, nothing to soften the blow. She meant it. My name is Anna Merrill. And for years I had been the person who held this entire launch together, the integrations, the dependencies, the ugly code no one wanted to touch. And now, minutes before the client's final review, my manager was telling me the project would be better without me. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I simply felt something shift inside, a clean break where patience used to live. Marissa tapped her tablet and said, "I will lead this one. You should take the day." I opened my laptop without a word. My hands did not shake. They were steadier than they had been in months. I pulled up the full technical risk report I had been compiling since the first missing patch, since the first overwritten timeline, since the first time she called my concerns dramatic. I attached logs, screenshots, version notes, and documentation no one else had bothered to read. Then I sent it directly to the client team at their Seattle waterfront office. No commentary. No emotion, only facts. After that, I closed every tab, powered down my laptop, and placed it in my bag. The office hallway felt strangely quiet as I gathered my notebooks and badge. Before leaving, I walked to Marissa's desk, tore a page from my pad, and wrote a single line. "Thank you for the suggestion. Sincerely." I set the note where she would see it the moment she returned, then headed toward the elevator without looking back. I had spent too many years carrying a project she barely understood. Today, I carried only my bag. Someone like me does not walk out without a reason. Something had pushed me long before her final sentence did, long before Marissa told me not to show up. My days followed a rhythm that felt almost predictable. I was the senior systems analyst assigned to a massive maritime logistics client headquartered along the Seattle waterfront port, scheduling, warehouse automation, freight routing, all tied together through integrations most people preferred not to think about. I thought about them constantly. Late nights, early mornings, long strings of dependencies that only made sense after tracing them line by line. That was the part I loved. The hard, quiet work no one else wanted to do. Back then, Marissa still pretended we were a team. She would pass my desk wearing her usual polished smile. "Anna, you always make this look effortless," she'd say, voice warm enough to fool anyone listening. She would lean closer, make sure the client hears the simple version. They like clarity. I learned early that simple meant hide the risks. Brady Knox joined the project halfway through the year. He had the enthusiasm of someone who had never stayed past sunset in this office. At his first stand-up, he slapped the conference table and said, "I am pumped to be here. Let me know where I can make the biggest impact." Marissa beamed at him. "Brady, you are exactly the energy we need." 2 hours later, I found him hovering over my screen. "Anna, can you walk me through this integration guide?" I tried. "But it's dense. It explains everything step by step," I said gently. "But sure, let's go through it." He nodded, relieved. That became our pattern, his undone work sliding quietly onto my plate. One afternoon, I handed Marissa a list of flagged risks tied to Brady's unfinished testing. She skimmed it and said, "Let's not overwhelm leadership with details. Anna, focus on progress, not problems." Her tone was kind. Her dismissal was not. Loyalty had kept me steady for years. I had not yet noticed the moment it stopped being a strength and became something else. Pressure always sharpened as go time approached, but this time felt different. The Seattle client wanted daily progress updates, and every morning began with a new request for confirmation that our integrations were stable. I was the only person running full readiness checks, tracing the dependencies, and validating the version history. No one asked how long it took. They only asked when it would be done. During a late afternoon sync, I pulled Marissa aside. "The documentation they are using is outdated. The last 2 patches changed the flow, and none of it has been retested." Marissa gave a polished smile. "Anna, you focus too much on what might go wrong. The client needs optimism. They need accuracy," I said quietly. She waved her hand like brushing dust off her sleeve. "Just trim the warnings. You know how leadership reacts when they hear too many obstacles." I let the silence stretch. She did not notice. 2 days later, Brady stopped by my desk, clutching his laptop like it might protect him. "Hey, Anna, about the demo Friday," he murmured. "I tried reading your integration guide. I swear I did. But I think I am just going to wing it. I do better when I improvise." I stared at him. "You cannot improvise with freight routing algorithms." He gave a nervous laugh. "I will keep it high level." Marissa said they love high level. When he walked away, relief written all over him, the weight in my chest settled a little heavier. That evening, while reviewing our timeline spreadsheet, I noticed something off. My original version had 3 flagged risks highlighted in red. The version Marissa sent to executives showed none of them. All warnings had been deleted. My name was still at the bottom. The truth was becoming harder to hold alone. But I was already doing it every day. The cracks were widening, and I was the only one watching them spread. The pre-launch meeting was supposed to bring everyone into alignment. But the moment Marissa began speaking, I knew she had something else in mind. She paced at the front of the room, voice smooth and confident as she layered buzzwords over half-truths. "We are in a strong position," she declared. "Momentum is high. The team has minimized complexity at every turn." Several heads turned toward me. I kept my eyes on my notebook. When Brady hesitated during his update, Marissa jumped in. The only delays came from over-processing certain tasks. "We are simplifying the workflow moving forward." The comment landed exactly where she wanted. My name was never mentioned, but the implication was clear enough for the room to hear. My stomach tightened, but I reached for a neutral tone. Complexity is not the issue. Untested changes. She cut me off with a smile that felt like pressure under the skin. "Anna tends to be extra thorough. It is admirable, but we need to stay agile. The client values quick wins." A few people nodded, unsure whether to agree or stay silent. I closed my notebook slowly. The meeting ended without further debate. People scattered, grateful to escape the tension. I had barely reached my desk when a notification flashed across my screen. The client had emailed, asking directly for me. "Anna, could you clarify the differing status reports sent this morning? We need your version before approving final deployment." I reread the message twice. They had noticed. Marissa appeared behind me without warning. "Interesting email," she said softly. "It seems you have been telling a different story than I have." "There are discrepancies," I replied. She leaned closer, her expression tightening around the edges. "You and I should talk privately." Her voice was calm, her eyes were not. Something had shifted. And whatever she planned to say next would not be something she could take back. Marissa waited until the hallway was empty before speaking. She folded her arms, studying me like I was a problem she needed to minimize. "About that email," she began. "You created confusion for the client. I cannot have you contradicting me again." I clarified the actual status. I said, "They asked because the numbers did not match." She stepped closer, lowering her voice until it sounded almost intimate. "Anna, you are making this harder than it needs to be. Leadership needs confidence right now. You undermine that when you focus on every risk." "Every risk is real," I replied. Marissa exhaled sharply, then leaned in with a carefully constructed smile. "Here is a thought. If you do not show up tomorrow, it would actually be better for this project." The hallway felt strangely still. The words were not loud, but they landed with the weight of a door closing. "That is not a joke," I said quietly. "It is a suggestion," she corrected. "Take the day. Let the rest of us handle the launch without your overthinking." She walked away before I could respond, not hurried, certain that her authority was absolute. Certain that I would swallow the insult the way I always had. But something inside me shifted. Not fury, not shock. Something steadier, a clean, sharp line between what I had been willing to tolerate and what I no longer would. When I returned to my desk, the room buzzed with pre-launch chatter, but it no longer pulled at me. I watched Brady struggling with a test script, watched Marissa rehearsing her talking points, watched the chaos I had held together for months. For the first time, none of it felt like mine to save. If Marissa truly believed the project would be better without me, I could show her exactly what that looked like. I stayed late that night, the office nearly silent except for the hum of old vents. The stillness made it easier to focus. I opened a new document and began listing every risk, every missed test, every overwritten change request. No embellishments, no frustration, just dates, commits, screenshots, and the parts of the system no one but me had touched. By the time I finished, the report stretched longer than I expected. It held months of warnings Marissa had ignored, and the gaps Brady kept trying to spin into victories. I attached everything to an email addressed to the client liaison, then added the Seattle executive team to the thread. My fingers hovered for a breath. I clicked send. There was no satisfaction in the action, only completion, something final and quiet. I closed my laptop and set it aside. In my drawer were my notebooks, my spare chargers, the badge I had worn long enough for the print to fade. I packed each item carefully, almost tenderly, not because I felt sentimental, but because I felt free. When my bag was zipped, I walked to Marissa's desk. Her tablet was still plugged in, glowing faintly. I tore a page from my pad and wrote the only sentence she had earned. Thank you for the suggestion, sincerely. I placed it where she would see it first, then stepped back. The note looked small, but it carried every hour of labor she had dismissed, every warning she had smothered, every quiet moment when I fixed what she pretended to understand. The elevator was empty when I pressed the button. I entered, set my bag beside me, and watched the doors slide shut. No fear rose in my chest. No regret tugged at me. Only relief, clean and steady. The project would move forward without me now. Marissa would see what her leadership looked like without the person she believed was optional. I woke the next morning to my phone vibrating nonstop. First one message, then another, then a stream of notifications too long to read all at once. I opened the group chat from my team. Anna, are you online? Brady just froze mid-demo. The system is throwing failures everywhere. Did you change something before you left? Marissa is asking. I typed back slowly. I did not change anything. Check the report I sent last night. A minute later, someone responded. Oh my God. The failures match the risks you flagged. Another message followed. The client wants to know why you're not here. I set the phone down and let the words settle. I could almost hear Marissa's voice, smoothing over every problem with rehearsed confidence. It would not work today. Not when the system itself contradicted her. A colleague I trusted, Luis, called me directly. Brady is sweating through his shirt, he said without preamble. They asked him about the untested warehouse automation flow. He said it was stable. Then the whole thing crashed in front of them. I documented that regression. I said, I know, he replied. They know too. The client pulled up your email during the call. In the background, I heard someone shouting. Then Luis lowered his voice. Marissa said you abandoned the team. The client asked about the timestamp. They saw you sent the report hours before she even prepared her slides. He let out a long breath. They are not happy with her. I did not gloat. I did not need to. The truth was finally louder than her buzzwords, louder than her confidence, louder than anything she tried to hide. I thanked Luis for calling and hung up. Feeling the calm settle again, Marissa wanted a launch without me. Now she had it. By late afternoon, I had turned my phone face down to quiet the notifications. It buzzed again, but this time it was an email alert, not another frantic message from the team. I opened it only because the subject line had my name in it. Anna, we need your help. It was from the client liaison, written with none of the usual formality. If you are available, we would like to bring you on as an independent consultant to stabilize the launch. Your report was the only clear documentation we received. Please let us know if you are willing to engage immediately. I reread the message twice, waiting for the familiar tug of pressure or responsibility. It did not come. Instead, I felt something steadier choice. My phone rang again, this time an unknown Seattle number. I answered cautiously. Is this Anna Merrill? A woman asked. My name is Dana. I am a recruiter with North Star Systems. We partner with several maritime logistics clients, including yours. Your report circulated this morning. I closed my eyes briefly. I did not send it to anyone outside the project. We know, she said. It impressed the right people. If you are open to a conversation, we believe you would be a strong fit for a senior lead role. You would have real authority, not the illusion of it. The blunt honesty startled a laugh out of me. You have good timing, or maybe you finally have the freedom to hear what you deserve, she replied. After we ended the call, I sat back on my couch, letting the quiet settle. For the first time in years, I imagined work without Marissa's shadow, without someone rewriting my warnings into praise for themselves. The future was not a question of what I owed anymore. It was a question of what I wanted. 2 days after I walked out, My former director called asking if I had a moment to clarify a few things. I let the call go to voicemail, whatever storm Marissa had created. I was not stepping back into it, but the messages kept coming from Luis, from people I barely knew, from numbers that looked like corporate lines. Every one of them carried the same undertone panic. Late that evening, Luis finally reached me. "Anna, the executives pulled the audit trigger," he said, exhausted. "The client escalated everything: your report, the failed rehearsal, the altered spreadsheets. They want answers in writing." I stayed silent, letting him continue. "They ran a comparison between your original timelines and the version Marissa sent upstairs. All your risk flags were removed. They checked the document history. It shows her username." Another pause, then a quieter admission. "Leadership also pulled the meeting transcripts. The AI recorder caught everything from yesterday, including her line telling you not to show up." I had expected fallout, but not this quickly. "They played the audio back in the executive review," he added. "Marissa tried to claim it was taken out of context, but," he exhaled hard, "there is no context that makes that sentence appropriate." "And Brady?" I asked. "He quit an hour after his technical interview," Luis said. "They confronted him about the untested automation flows. He panicked, blamed Marissa, then walked out with his monitor under his arm like he could escape the codebase itself." I pictured it too clearly. "Anna," Luis continued, "they removed Marissa from all leadership duties this morning. She is being put into a mandatory performance recovery program at her level. That is the end of the road." There was no triumph in me, no spark of victory, only a settling sense of inevitability. Marissa had written her own downfall in every overwritten risk log, every manipulated spreadsheet, every time she dismissed the truth in favor of a good story. When Luis hung up, the apartment felt quiet again, except now the quiet meant possibility instead of exhaustion. Marissa's voice, once constant and heavy in my life, had finally gone still. Her chapter was closing, and mine was no longer tied to hers. The offer from North Star Systems arrived the next morning, clean and direct. A consulting position, flexible hours, full authority over the architecture I would oversee, and compensation that reflected the years I had spent carrying projects on my back. Dana called me as soon as the email landed. "Take your time," she said, though her tone held a quiet certainty. "We want you, Anna, and we want you to set the terms." I had never heard those words from anyone in leadership before. I told her I would accept, not because I felt obligated or cornered, but because it felt like stepping into something I could finally claim as mine. The transition was quick. They onboarded me remotely, giving me access to documentation and sandboxes without demanding I solve impossible problems on my first day. When I asked for boundaries, clear expectations, written approvals, dedicated testing cycles, they agreed without hesitation. "You deserve room to do this right," Dana said. A simple sentence, but it struck deeper than she knew. That evening, I walked along the Seattle waterfront, the air colder than the last time I had been here, the noise gentler than the office I had left behind. The water moved steadily, without urgency, as if reminding me that momentum does not have to be frantic to be real. My phone buzzed. A message from Luis. "Marissa keeps asking if you regret leaving." I stopped walking, thumb hovering over the screen. Regret had never crossed my mind, not once, but I did not type that. I let the message sit while the city hummed around me. Marissa had spent years framing me as the problem she needed to manage. In the end, she had removed herself from my path without understanding what she had given me. She had not pushed me out. She had pushed me forward into a life built on clarity instead of chaos, respect instead of excuses. I finally typed a reply to Luis. "Tell her I am doing well." Then I slipped my phone away, breathed in the evening air, and felt something settle into place. She told me the project would be better without me. She was wrong, but my life is